It's one of the most confusing and honestly painful things for anyone caring for a person with dementia. It's that moment. And for so many, it happens every single day. When your loved one, who's sitting right there in their own living room, looks at you with real panic in their eyes and says, I want to go home. I mean, just imagine hearing those words. They're not just random, they are filled with this sense of purpose, of urgency, a really deep sense of responsibility. But the thing is, the children are all grown up, and this person, they are already home. This is the daily reality for so many families. It's a moment where all logic just seems to evaporate, and it's replaced by this overwhelming emotional need. So let me tell you about someone we'll call Mrs. A. Every single evening, like clockwork, she would start packing a small bag with these exact items. Now, this isn't random. Look at what's on the list. Each of these things holds a deep meaning. They're a connection to a life, to an identity she's desperately trying to get back to. It's a whole ritual, and it's driven by a powerful memory deep inside.
Okay, so what is really going on here? This is the most crucial thing to understand. When a person with dementia says, I want to go home, they are almost never talking about a physical address. They are searching for a feeling. First and foremost, what they're looking for is safety. For them, the world has started to feel really confusing, maybe even a little scary and unpredictable. So home becomes the brain's code word for a place where things made sense, a place where they felt totally secure and in control. It's also a search for their own identity. Think about it. Home was the place where they knew exactly who they were. They were a mom, a dad, a provider, a spouse. When dementia starts to strip away that sense of self, the brain frantically tries to find its way back to that feeling of being needed, of being known. This also tells us a lot about how memory works in dementia. You see, the long-term, really ingrained memories often stay strong long after the recent ones fade. So they're not looking for the house they've lived in for the last decade, no way. They are trying to get back to their childhood home or maybe the first house they bought back in 1960. In their mind, they are literally living in that timeline. And sometimes it's actually much simpler than all of that. Sometimes that urge to go home is just their brain's way of saying, hey, something's wrong. It could be a sign that they're hungry or tired, or maybe the TV is just too loud. It's an expression of an unmet need that they just can't find the words for anymore. All right, so knowing all of this, what are we supposed to do? How should we respond? Well, the single most important shift you can possibly make is to stop correcting their reality and start connecting with their emotion. Trust me, logic and arguments, they're only going to make things worse. When you fight their reality by saying, but you are home, it just creates more fear and maybe even shame. Instead, you have to kind of step into their world. You want to acknowledge the feeling behind the words, validate that powerful emotion, and then offer the comfort that they are truly desperately seeking. So let's get really practical here. I want to give you a toolkit of 7 strategies that you can actually use to navigate these difficult moments. These are all about reducing distress and, most importantly, building trust. Okay, these first 3 steps are your foundation. First, you have to become a detective. Start looking for patterns. What happens right before they want to leave? Once you spot a trigger, like it always happens at dusk, you can move to step 2 and fix the environment before the behavior even has a chance to start. And of course, step 3 is the golden rule. Always join their reality gently instead of fighting it. That sundowning period in the late afternoon is a classic trigger, but the environmental fixes can be surprisingly simple. Before it gets dark, brighten up the lights in the house. Close the blinds to get rid of any confusing shadows. Put on some soft, familiar music, and maybe start a pleasant, hands-on activity like folding towels. You're basically creating a sense of safety before the anxiety can even get a foothold. The next steps build right on top of that foundation. So for step 4, instead of trying to block the urge to leave, you can honor it safely. Create a little travel ritual, maybe a short walk up and down the hall, or you could sit down and look through an old photo album of their childhood home. Step 5, offer them what we call identity anchors. Reassure them based on who they were, saying something like, you always took such wonderful care of your children. Step 6, make sure the doors are safe, but do it quietly. Think soft chimes, not blaring alarms. And finally, in any moment of peace, reinforce that calm and connection. A simple, I really like being with you, can work wonders.
All right, now for some of the toughest, most common questions that caregivers have. This is where all the theory meets that heart-wrenching day-to-day reality. This is a big one, and I get it. This question comes from a place of desperation, from a real need to keep your loved ones safe. You see them getting ready to walk right out the door, and your first instinct is to just stop them by any means necessary.
But the answer here has to be a very clear and compassionate no. Taking their things away can feel like a punishment to them, and it can seriously damage the trust that you have worked so hard to build. The goal is always to use those gentle, environmental strategies we just talked about, like redirection, not physical prevention that feels like a punishment.
Whew, this might be the most painful question of all. Your heart wants to be truthful. Of course it does. But you have to stop and ask yourself, what good will that truth actually do in this moment?
The answer is never, and here's why. Forcing them to confront a painful reality they can't process only creates fresh heartbreak. Every time you tell them their parents are gone, it's like they're hearing it for the very first time, and they have to grieve that loss all over again. So instead of factual truth, you want to offer emotional truth. Just validate their feeling. Wow, you really miss that home. It must have meant so much to you.
This one can be incredibly scary and so hurtful. When your best attempts to keep them safe are met with anger, with accusations, it is so easy to get defensive or just feel completely defeated. You have to remember, this is their fear talking, not the person you know and love. So don't get into a debate about the word trapped. Go underneath the word to the emotion. Respond to the fear. A simple, calm reassurance like, you're not trapped, you're safe, and I'm right here with you, is infinitely more powerful than any logical argument you could ever make. And finally, I just want to say this directly to any caregiver who is navigating this. Please hear this loud and clear. The work you are doing is exhausting, it's heartbreaking, and it is heroic. The situation itself might be unfixable, but your compassion makes an absolutely immeasurable difference. And you deserve to receive that same level of compassion yourself.